Good morning, this is Angela with Progress Permaculture. Today I'm going to show you my process for making a pair of wool combs. Now, wool combs are an important tool for those of us who are spinners. I will be showing you more about using these in some upcoming videos. But if you go to purchase wool combs online, they're very expensive, often close to $100 a pair. So a while back, my dad and I decided we would make some ourselves. Safety is super important. Here you can see I am using a pusher on the saw stop table saw in order to cut up some pieces of scrap oak and get this project started. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll realize that this cannot have been filmed recently. I made these wool combs almost a year and a half ago. Since then, all of my dad's tools have been distributed between myself and my siblings. Because I have no garage, my brother was able to take all of the large power tools used in this video, and I'm really sad that I no longer have the ability to do woodworking projects with my dad in his garage. But this was a really important time for us, especially as he had lost most of his eyesight, and the only way he could continue to do woodworking was if we did it as a team. The design for these combs was based off of images on the internet and also what scrap oak wood we had available in his workshop. Just doing a bit of double checking here that I'm cutting all the pieces exactly the same size. You can never have too many clamps. Here we are gluing together two pieces of the cut oak so that we can have the right dimensions for the next step. This block would become the body of the comb. Out of one side of it, I needed to drill a hole in order to eventually affix a handle that I would turn on the lathe later in the project. Here I am using my dad's 45-year-old Shopsmith, again a tool that I absolutely love, so versatile, but it doesn't live with me now, it lives with my brother in California. But I made many great projects throughout my childhood and adulthood using this wonderful multi-purpose power tool. If you're using a large drill bit and hard wood, I cannot recommend enough using those clamps in place of your hands. Safety first, and also the piece of wood is not going to wiggle around if it's held by a clamp. It's going to be much more secure. You can see here I'm going very slow and even with the drill press. I don't want there to be any friction burns in the wood. I'm also careful to clear out any of the little wood chips as I go. I love the fact that you can set the depth on the drill press so that you can't goof up and drill too deeply into the wood. Just another shout out for the good old Shopsmith here. What a great tool. Really bummed out that I won't be able to use this again, but I hope my nieces and nephews get to enjoy it. Here I'm using the bandsaw to shape the head of the wool comb. Then I'm back to the other side of the Shopsmith to use the drum sander so that I can smooth out those edges. Wool combs have a series of nails or pins coming up out of them. Now, I've never made wool combs before, and neither has my dad, so we went back and forth on the design here. But what we decided is to use the drill press and to drill a series of holes at equal distances and then drop the nails through and put glue on the back. Let me show you how I did that. Here I'm just taping some graph paper so that I have a guide when I go to the drill press to know how far apart to drill the holes. I do have to say, despite having graph paper, it was really tricky to be precise here. I mark the middle of the comb and then I fold the graph paper in half and make sure that that crease lines up with my pencil mark on the wood. At this point in the process, I thought that my nails were going to be all neat and tidy, but again, easier said than done. I don't have any footage of drilling the combs. This is the hackle, which I will feature in my next video, that also required drilling. Here you could see it was not quite as easy as I thought to get these coming out straight. I needed very long, very sturdy nails with a small head. Now, these nails are going to withstand a lot of torque as you pull the fiber through them, but they also need to be smooth. There were little burrs on the ends of the nails, and my dad very graciously sanded all of them, which was something he could do by feel. The small size of the nail head meant that I could easily countersink them down into the wood, but I needed to secure them with epoxy so that they would not wiggle. For a little bit of whimsy, I mixed glitter into the epoxy, as you can see here. I used a 5-minute epoxy, and I'm glad I did not pick a slower acting product as the garage was quite cool and I ended up needing to let this sit overnight before moving on to the next step. Now, here you can see once I peeled off the blue painter's tape, I needed to use a plane to remove the excess glitter from the top of the comb. I only wanted glitter epoxy showing in those countersunk holes. Despite the fact that the holes were not drilled as precisely as I would have liked, I'm very pleased with how the finished nails look. What I ended up with were 2 offset rows of very secure, long teeth that will be great for combing fiber. Next, it was time to turn the handles on the lathe. I'm going to turn both handles as one piece and then cut them apart. We had a perfect piece of really nice oak scrap for this. Now, it's really important to find the center of your block of wood so that you get an even turn on the lathe. It's easier to mount it if you cut some little grooves on the end piece first. These little Irwin hand saws are super cheap. I think we got it at Sears a number of years ago, but a great tool that I use often. Here you can see the mounting pin for the lathe. Now, once again, we're using the good old Shopsmith. I think the lathe on this is quite good for easy projects. Nothing too complicated and nothing too fine. We're all quite tall in my family, and after a while using the Shopsmith tends to hurt your back a little bit. I wish it was about 2 or 3 inches taller. By the way, I always wear a full face shield when using the lathe. Previously, I had always used chisels, but my dad had a relatively new set of carbide lathe tools, so I am trying them for this project. I found that you needed to use quite a different angle. I'm using the chisel rest here, and I'm resting the outside of my hand along it and making sure that I'm really careful to stay perpendicular to the wood as I work. These carbide tools were really nice, although, again, slightly different technique than if you are using the old school chisels. Remember, I'm doing both of the handles at once, so that high spot in the middle is where I'm going to cut the 2 handles apart at the end. I cut out a whole bunch of fiddly stuff here about using calipers to measure and make sure both sides were symmetrical, blah, blah, blah. Here you can see my dad is running the lathe and sanding down the 2 handles. He couldn't see well enough to cut on the lathe anymore, but this is all by feel, and he really enjoyed being able to participate in the project that way. Quickly here, please note on the right side of the photo the vacuum attachment that is put underneath the lathe to help control the sawdust. This lumpy bit in the middle will become scrap as I cut the 2 handles apart. Each end of the handle will be the section that attaches to the base of the comb. Gotta love those lightweight Japanese hand saws for doing those small cuts like this one. I'm not sure what happened to the footage here, but I have taken the handle and glued it to the head of the comb, and once again, trusty clamps to help hold the pieces together while they set up. Here you can see both of the combs drying nicely overnight. After testing out various stains from my dad's very large collection of stains, I settled on a deep kind of maroon look. I think I mixed a dark cherry with another color that was called sunset something or other. The stain dried and set more nicely in the sunshine, so we left it outside for the afternoon. Here you can see the finished combs back in my home. Really excited to show you how I use these in a video coming up very soon. Thank you so much for watching. It was a great privilege to be able to share woodworking projects with you all, and I hope that you will tune in soon for my video about how I made my wool hackle and my future videos about how I process hair from my poodles into wool yarn. Thanks so much.